Welcome back, everyone, to the third segment of our three-part series with CryptoEQ. My name is Baxter Hines. I'm the Chief Investment Officer at Honeycomb Digital Investments, and I am honored to be joined today by Spencer Randall at CryptoEQ. We've been talking quite a bit about how our two firms have worked together to produce research in the new and exciting digital asset space. Our firms have collaborated to work with several projects or to put out research on different projects, particularly in the layer one space within the crypto sector. And we want to go into that in more depth in this segment. So one of the things that I would say is just that the scope of what we have done with CryptoEQ is Honeycomb has commissioned the CryptoEQ to write some reports on specific projects. We've done 3 so far, Solana, Terra, and Algorand. And the way it works is we commission them to do a deep dive on these particular projects, run through their disciplined approach of coming out with the best quality content in the industry and coming back with really an opinion of what they think from multiple different angles on these various projects. Honeycomb will receive the right to view this content that they put out exclusively for a 3-month period, and then it's disseminated to the rest of the industry and the subscribers at CryptoEQ. So today we're going to talk about some of the work that we've done and really give a sneak peek to our viewers as to what's going to be released in that content, since they actually have not seen it. It's still exclusive just between CryptoEQ and Honeycomb at this point, but very soon to be released to the overall market. So welcome, Spencer. Thank you so much for being here today. Maybe just talk a little bit about how we got together and what work you've done for us so far.
Yeah, well, the origin story is you and I met at the Texas Blockchain Summit, right? And so that was a great event here in Texas. It was held in Austin. It was put on by the Texas Blockchain Council. And it's another example of just colliding with great people at some of these events that are happening that are centered around blockchain. And the rest is history, and we've been working together ever since. There's a lot of overlap in the way we think about fundamental analysis for crypto and the importance for objective, unbiased research. Now, when you think about kind of the jumping off point, you and I talked about this strategically. And when you look at general purpose smart contracts and you think about the addressable market for what's potentially the next evolution of the internet, it's hard not to start in the very competitive L1 space and all of the opportunity there is there for due diligence. There's many competing platforms, many showing promise. Of course, Ethereum is the market leader, but after Ethereum, there's a number of L1s that have shown traction and have some interesting strengths and are doing things differently than Ethereum. And it deserves attention. It deserves great research. It deserves a deep dive, and that's how we kick things off. And we've enjoyed the work.
No, we've enjoyed working with you as well. And in my book, Digital Finance, Security Tokens and Unlocking the Real Potential of Blockchain, I mentioned the importance of what blockchain was going to do. It was going to be the biggest innovation for our society since the internet. And I believe that in order for the true potential of this technology to really take hold, it was certain blockchains were going to have a minimum of 4 major components. They were going to have speed, they were going to have security, they were going to have scalability, and they were going to have governance. Now that's a lot of different angles, and it's a tall order that these layer ones are going to have to achieve in order to, again, be able to run, say, Walmart supply chain, or to run anti-counterfeiting measures for Louis Vuitton, whatever the use case may be. The number of addressable markets are huge. The number of use cases are just mind-blowing. And so it's going to take a special kind of project to make that work. And so that's one of the reasons why, when we're looking as investors in these crypto projects, we need to have the bases covered. And to leverage our time, we decided we're going to reach out to CryptoEQ. Before you and I met down in Austin, I'd been a subscriber to CryptoEQ for quite a while and really liked some of the stuff that you all were putting out. So when we met face to face, hit it off even more, it was really I knew something special was happening, and so we wanted to collaborate with you all further. And I think the first project that we worked on was Solana. Maybe Spencer, talk a little bit about that project and kind of what you all found.
Yeah, I'd like to start with the strengths. That what Solana's accomplished in a relatively short period of time is impressive. It's extremely cheap to use. Transactions are extremely fast. Finality is amongst some of the best in the business, and it's got a fantastic community of developers and dApps. It can be discussed, alongside Ethereum and the traction that it's developing with developers. Of course, Ethereum still is the market leader, but there's been a significant amount of progress within the Solana ecosystem and network effects there. Where there's challenges for us in our research and what we identified is there is a very high financial barrier to become a validator in the Solana ecosystem. And this is different than other market leaders. And what this can do over time is further centralize control of the network. And that ties back to the governance piece that you're talking about in your framework for your digital finance book. Now, another concern of ours is very high wealth concentration due to early insiders and VCs. Now, of course, every blockchain after Bitcoin, it's very challenging to have a fair launch when the industry is exploding and there's so much attention. So we understand that, of course, there will be some level of concentration in early investors and insiders. But with Solana, we're seeing in our analysis of investment in the early stage token, a disproportionate amount of concentration in insiders and VCs. What we like to see when we look at a project and its token distribution is a nice share between the community, early insiders, VCs, founders, and future planned investment of the token and distribution of the token. And the last thing I'd highlight would be the probably what a lot of folks have seen in the headlines would be these DDoS attacks and concerns around Solana's uptime. These concerns are more than FUD. A lot of people write it off as fear, uncertainty, and doubt. But there are challenges with their architecture. They are aiming to be a monolithic chain, and tying back to your framework, that can cause concerns around scalability. And so their uptime has been questioned, and there's been several attacks and instances where the network has been offline for extended periods of time. So only time will tell how they decide to potentially overcome that. But that's in a nutshell, that's our preview of the Solana core report, and that will be released to the public very soon.
No, it was great analysis. And as I mentioned earlier, these new chains, they've got to have the speed, they've got to have security, they've got to have scalability, they've got to have governance. And if there's one weak link in the chain, no pun intended, I can't see enterprises and mass adoption going to these chains, at least to the scale that I'm envisioning blockchain going to. It really is going to be the biggest thing since the internet. You're going to have solutions that can meet all of those different hurdles. So I think it's really great that you all were able to identify some of those challenges that Solana was having, but also, again, looking at the strengths into what it's having. But it seems like there's definitely some work that needs to be done. Maybe let's talk a little bit about another project that you worked on. I know you just came out with a report for us on Terra. That's been one that has really done well over time, and especially as we've had different problems in the marketplace with the Ukrainian conflict and with the sell-off that happened in December and January. People saw that the stable coins that were associated with Terra were doing quite well. Ticker like UST, the US dollar stable coin that was associated with Luna, was doing well. So when that goes well, that bodes well for the primary cryptocurrency, Terra, ticker Luna. Maybe just give us a little flavor on what you saw in that analysis.
Yeah, I'd like to start with the strengths. Similar to Solana, Terra deserves an immense amount of respect and praise for how quickly they've developed network effects. It's only been a few short years for Solana and Terra, and they're some of the largest ecosystems in existence in our asset class. One of the Terra is one of the largest DeFi ecosystems. It's right behind Ethereum and total value locked, or TVL. in its stablecoin UST that you mentioned, it's grown to be one of the largest decentralized stablecoins in existence. It's now larger than DAI, and DAI was previously the largest decentralized stablecoin. And then, another just great thing that Terra's got under its cap is Anchor. Anchor is arguably some of the best risk-adjusted returns on stablecoins in the entire industry. They've been consistent with that 20% roughly yield on the UST balance. So some amazing accomplishments in the past few years for its relatively short history. But of course, we look at both sides of every ecosystem, every project, and we did identify some weaknesses. When you dive into Anchor specifically, that 20% return is subsidized, and it's not sustainable long term. It's propped up by staking rewards from collateral that's deposited in the ecosystem. And so, if you think about realistic scenarios where we have extended drawdowns in the crypto market, which historically is very normal. It's got a cyclical cycle. It's a market cycle just like any other market. Well, then how do you continue to subsidize your 20% yield if the value of the collateral is depreciating and all of your balances are in a stablecoin UST balance? So that's a question. It's a big question, and we don't think that's sustainable in the long term. Now, they're building at the intersection of DeFi and stablecoins, and that is an area there the SEC is looking at DeFi, looking at stablecoins, looking at how to regulate both of those valuable buckets of our ecosystem. And Terra is operating at the intersection of that. And if there's any project that's singled out next, Terra is certainly ripe for a look. And so that, I would say, regulatory concern is a weakness that we've identified, especially as the regulatory landscape becomes more dynamic. And we just had Biden's executive order.
I often compare the growth of the blockchain ecosystems that we're experiencing today in our society with what happened at the time the internet was forming. And I feel like there are a lot of different themes that seem to be echoing through time. And when I first got into the financial business, it was during those go-go days of the internet where new companies and entrepreneurs were springing up every day, similar to what we're seeing in the blockchain space. Well, something that happened concurrently during that time was the Asian financial crisis. You saw countries like Thailand, Malaysia, South Korea, they had their currency depreciate very rapidly because there were these pegs or quasi-pegs that were set up at the time between the value of those currencies and the US dollar. And there were some very astute traders that were monitoring the reserves that these currency boards that were in Thailand, Malaysia, et cetera, had. And they realized that those reserves were depleting. And then once they were depleted, the market was just going to very rapidly get out on these particular currencies. And that's exactly what happened. And the report that you put out showing those deposits that the Anchor protocol had, it definitely reminds me of that. And I've seen these markets when the pegs get lost, or when really just overall confidence gets lost in a particular project or asset, the market will punish it very, very fast and very furiously. And that's what I would worry about with Terra. Just going back high level to some of the analysis that you've done workforce on, what's interesting about Solana is that you pointed out that the project and the intentions were great, but the technology was what was lacking. With Terra, what was great was the exact opposite. It was the technology was rock solid. There was no real problem with the technological underpinnings, but it was the mechanisms by which those pegs were put out that were flawed, or at least have certain problems that any good investor should know about prior to making a capital commitment to that particular coin. So I really applaud you all for the work that you've done. And again, I think it really shows the complete 360-degree type of analysis that you do. I want to thank you for being here today on this segment, and we look forward to working with you in the future. I would encourage all of our viewers to check out Our website's cryptoeq.io and honeycombdigital.io. And please feel free to reach out to Spencer or to me if you have any questions. Thanks again for joining.
Thank you, Baxter.